everyone, my name is Callie Chappelle, and thanks for watching this video, How to Be Affirmative, Part 2, The Speeches. This is a part of my video series, the Novice Go Fight Win Debate series, aimed at teaching novices how to do policy debate. So my name is Callie Chappelle, and I'm a debater for the University of Michigan. I debated for Traverse City Central High School, and I'm a 2N1A, and my fun fact is hashtag 1AR Pride. Alright, so how do you make the most out of these videos? You should do two things. First, you should take notes, and second, you should rewatch bits that you need re-explained. Hopefully we'll have worksheets and or supplemental materials that will go along with the video, so check in the video description to see if I posted anything. Next, just take a breath. You don't need to memorize it all, but at least be familiar with everything in this video. It's a building process. Especially this video where I talk about kind of what to do in every single speech, you should definitely be comfortable with implementing these pretty quickly right away in the round. You may have to watch it a couple times, you may have to take notes about kind of the process and what to do, but if the sooner you implement this, the more ballots you'll pick up. And finally, your coach may like things differently, or you may like to debate in a different style, or do a different form of debate. That's totally okay. I'm in full support of whatever type of debate you do, as long as it's policy debate. And this is just one starting point, and it's not an end point. Alright, so here's Throwback Thursday. So we've done we've done one previous part to the introduction to being AF, and that was the main main objectives of the AF team. So in this part, we're going to talk about the big ideas of the main AF speeches. So I'm going to take you speech by speech and talk about what you should be doing, kind of what the purpose of the speeches, and then also sometimes how to make the speech in the first place. Alright, so I'm just going to give you a heads up. This video is a little bit longer than the other ones because there's a lot more material, but I really think it's important for you to sit down and kind of watch it all the way through. So like, let's say you're the 2A and you don't give the 1AR, you should still have a very good idea of what the 1AR is doing, so you can work collaboratively with your partner and make the debate as good as possible. So let's go. The AF speech by speech. So buckle up, kiddos, because I personified every speech and debate to some kid you've probably met in school. I think this will help you kind of understand the big purpose of the speech and also help you remember some funny things. So the 1AC. So the 1AC is the group project guru. So I describe here. So the one you see is the group project guru. This is a student who is always ready to throw down for an A+ on every school project. Because of hard work and preparation, this kid is always ready to set up a win, no matter what things go down on performance day because of preparation. Although the project is sometimes large and complex, this kid knows it inside and out and has immense loyalty to coming out on top. So how does this relate to the 1AC? Well, it's the student who is always ready to get an A+. It's the person who prepares their speech, who prepares the AF plan to be ready for anything, no matter kind of what crazy things the 1AC throws at you or what crazy things go down on performance day. And sometimes, although the project, the AF, is sometimes large and complex, the 1AC knows the AF inside and out and has immense loyalty to coming out on top and winning the affirmative rounds. So, the 1AC, for real. So this is where you present most of your offense in the round. So the 1AC should be 8 minutes about how and why your AF is awesome. So the role of the 1A during the 1AC is to read the 1AC like it's your night on the town and you're ready to roll. AKA, it should sound perfect. No ifs, ands, or buts. So what is the role of the 2A during the 1AC? Well, it's your role to craft the 1AC with the 2AR in mind. We're going to talk more about this later. So, the format of the 1AC. Most 1ACs follow this format. First is inherency, which is why the plan isn't happening now. The second is the plan text. The third is the advantages. Most AFs have 2 to 3, and these are reasons why the plan is a good idea. Insolvency is the fourth thing. I don't know why there are 2 1s here, and that's why the plan, would actually work. A quick note about inherency is recently reading inherency in the 1AC has gone out of vogue on the national level for some reason, especially in varsity, where people just don't make inherency arguments anymore. But brand new novices, y'all should definitely read it in your 1AC. Alright, so let's go on a field trip to the 1AC. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go to this aquaculture affirmative. Okay, so this is the aquaculture affirmative that y'all are probably reading if you are taking a debate class. And if you're not, then maybe you won't be reading this app, but it'll still be a good example. So I'm going to go. So here's this file. So where did I get that? Well, let's see. I went to my evidence folder and I went to the AF, right? Oh, actually, it's this one, right? So I'm in that file. I'm in the AF file. Come on. Let's go. Okay, I'm in the AF file, and I'm going to go using my handy headings. Note that I opened it in verbatim to the 1AC. So here's the 1AC, right? Observation 1 is inherency. So look, here's our inherency card, Thorson 414. This card should look familiar if you watch the introduction to debate video, because that was the very first time you heard spreading, probably. And here's the plan text, this big monstrosity. And here is advantage 1, okay? And look, I can even go to my navigation pane and expand this. Look at some cards that are in advantage 1. I can go to advantage 2, the economy. And then observation 2, so this is observation 1 is advantage 1 and advantage 2. And I can go to observation 2, which is solvency. And that's why, remember, why your plan, would do something or would work. So here are the solvency cards, okay? So that's what a 1AC looks like. And what this is an AF file. So what does an AF file contain? Well, it contains the 1AC, obviously, but it also contains case extensions, so more evidence about your AF. And it also contains 2 AC blocks and 1 AR blocks. We'll talk more about those in a little bit. So let's go back down to the PowerPoint. All right. So 2As. How do you craft a 1AC? So 2As, unless you're assigned an AF to read by your team, class, coach, or teacher, you get to choose what AF you want to read. So here are some tips about how to pick a killer AF. First, pick something that you're genuinely interested in and would like to research, because you're going to have to be researching your AF pretty substantially, or at least know a lot about it. So you might as well pick something that you're actually interested in. Second, you should pick an AF with advantages that you feel comfortable defending and explaining against a variety of neg impacts. So as I said in the impact calc video, one of my favorite debates, because I'm a scientist, is global warming. So I love reading global warming AFs because I feel comfortable explaining how global warming solves literally every impact that they could throw at me. If you really like talking about Asia, if you know a lot about Asian politics, then choose something that has an Asian impact, right? So pick things that you feel like you're in your strong suit explaining. If you're an econ person, pick something that has an economics impact that you can explain really well. Next, you should pick an AF with a mechanism or a process of implementation that you feel comfortable defending against a variety of counterplans. Counterplans are really going to put you to the test to see whether or not your mechanism actually works. So you should pick a mechanism that's defensible against process counterplans, that's against essentially process counterplans, and also is robust enough to go against advantage counterplans. If you don't remember what those are, check out the counterplan lecture. I detailed those in, I believe, part 2 of the counterplan lecture, which is how to be neg with the counterplan. And finally, you should play up your strengths. If you're Slayer at topicality, maybe you can get away with reading a less topical AF. If you're really good at the K, you should read something critical. If you're amazing at performance debate, then you should read and defend a poem or do something else that plays up your strengths. So 1A is performing the 1AC. So as a 1A, the 1AC is your baby. It is the only speech in the debate that is 100% pre-scripted before the round even starts, and you can practice it as much as you want. That means that you should practice it. You have no excuse for stuttering, not going fast, not being clear. By the time you get to the debate round, you should have practiced the 1AC so much that you could read it in your sleep. Okay, maybe not that much, but you should be pretty darn good at reading your 1AC. Also, practice reading your 1AC persuasively. Think about what words you want to emphasize. Think about how you can say it in the most clear way. You can think about key times which you want to make eye contact with the judge. All these things should be planned out before you give the 1AC. And finally, you should tag your 1AC evidence persuasively. This may be something that you need to do, but more likely it's something that your 2A will want to do. The way that you choose to frame the AF in the 1AC is going to stick with the judge throughout the debate, so it's important to make it sound as persuasive as possible right out of the gate. So let's go to the next speech. The next affirmative speech is the 2AC. So the 2AC is the person who's good at everything. The 2AC is a student who can do it all. They kick butt at history, math, science, heck, even music, and all seemingly at a drop of a hat. But of course, the 2AC isn't a born natural. Their uncanny ability to be prepared for anything is a product of hard work and dedication. So just like that person who is just like, you're just like, why are they good at everything? It's because they prepare well before, right? It's the person who is great at history because they study a lot. The person who's good at math because they spend a lot of time working on it. The person who's great at singing because they spend lots of time practicing. The person who's good at playing soccer because they go to soccer practice. It requires a lot of work to be good at everything. And just like that, the 2AC has to spend a lot of time making blocks so they can be well prepared for any off-case argument. So, some people think the 2AC is the hardest speech in debate. Brett Bricker. Personally, I think the 1AR is the hardest speech, but shout out to 2As. The 2AC is pretty tricky. Funny story, well, actually not really funny story. The first time that I had to give a 2AC, I like randomly was a 2A in like one debate at camp. I actually read the wrong 2AC on topicality, so I like read a 2AC to like a violation that the neg didn't read, and then we lost on T, and it was like really embarrassing. And I like didn't really notice that I did that until like really late in the debate, which was really terrible. So yeah, I understand 2AC is pretty tricky. So main goals of the 2AC: 3 things. First, extend your AF, obviously. Second, you should respond to all negative off-case and on-case arguments. Great. And then 3, you should set up a persuasive strategy that you want to be explaining in the 2AR. So that seems like a pretty easy checklist. Yeah, it's actually pretty tricky. But we'll talk and we'll give you the specific skills to give a really kick-butt 2AC. Essentially, the number one way to give a 2AC is to have good 2AC blocks. So 2AC blocks, what are they? They are pre-scripted answers to common neg off-case arguments. So ideally, varsity debaters have 2AC blocks to all possible neg arguments that are common on the topic. Obviously, because you're novices, you're not going to have nearly as many as varsity debaters, but you should still have your own file of 2AC blocks, and you should get started on making those right now. Go on the NDCA Open Evidence Project, look at what kind of off-case arguments there are, read through the files, try to get understanding of them, and then craft your own 2AC. If you don't feel comfortable about, or if you're confused about like whether it's good or not, definitely ask your coach, ask your varsity debaters, even ask your other friends in the debate community, and they'll be happy to help you improve your 2ACs. So what does a 2AC block look like? Well, 2AC blocks are just collections of cards and arguments that are pre-scripted against different arguments. So 2AC blocks should always include both defense and offense against a negative position. And you should put your best arguments at the top of the 2AC block or at the beginning, so like near to when you start reading it, it'll be like the first thing that you read. And you should make your 2AC blocks longer than you think it'll take to read, because you can always go on to the next off case before finishing the block, but if you run out of cards and you have extra time, then it's hard to find cards. It's better to have them in front of you and then not read them than to not have them at all. So, what should 2ACs consist of? Well, let's talk about DAs. So they should be offensive, right? So they should contain a link turn or an impact turn, but not both. If you don't remember why, watch the DA lecture. And also defense. So they should contain a no uniqueness argument, a no link argument, a no impact argument, and always a reason why case solves the DA. Okay? So, 2ACs versus counterplans. I like to use this really helpful acronym, SPOT. Shout out to Craig Hennigan from, I believe, West Bloomfield Debate. And he was the first person when I was a novice, way back when I was a novice, to teach me SPOT. Okay, so S stands for solvency. So those are reasons why the counterplan doesn't solve the F. P stands for perms. Always make both perm do both and perm do the counterplan in the 2AC, but just pick one to explain in the 1AR. If you don't remember the permutation, watch the third video in the series of counterplan lectures, AF answers to the counterplan, and I talk about perms a lot there. O stands for offense. Those are other reasons why the counterplan is bad. So these are disadds to the counterplan. And T stands for theory. So this is conditionality and also reasons why their particular counterplan is unfair. So international fiat bad, process counterplan's bad, agent counterplan's bad, PIC's bad, etc. Also, you should make the argument that the counterplan links to the DA that is a net benefit, and of course also make arguments against the net benefit as well, just like taking out the actual DA. If you want more details about this and also about disads, how to answer those on the F, we have respective videos. 2ACs versus critiques. You should always have the following arguments: framework, a permutation, a defense of what the K is critiquing, so like your epistemology, your ontology, your reps, etc. And it varies a lot depending on the K. We're not going to go into answering Ks in this lecture. It's just, that's actually a very complicated topic, and that'll have its own video to come. So yeah, so putting it together. So you should have a big section in your AF file called 2AC blocks, and you should separate the sections into a section for common neg arguments on case, topicality, disads, counterplans, and Ks. And within each section, you should make a header for common arguments. Then you should put your cards and your arguments for the 2AC in each section, and in a debate, as the 1 and C read each off case, you should go to this file and pull the relevant blocks. So let's take a field trip to the 2AC blocks. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to go to the AF file. So again, here we are back at the AF file. And look, I have this handy section called 2AC blocks. Okay, so let's expand this and see. So I've got TAC blocks against T, disads, counterplans. You should also have a section of 2AC blocks against critiques as well, but I just don't have any right now. All right, so let's expand this even more. So within 2AC blocks for T, here are 2 T violations I already have blocked out. T, it is the USFG, and T, ocean development. So let's see what I have in disads. 2AC environment DA, 2AC fisheries industry DA. Okay, this is like nowhere near as many. Like for T, you should probably have between 4 to 7 blocks. For DAs, you should have around 20. Seriously, there are going to be a lot of DAs on the topic. For counterplans, you should also have upwards of 15 to 20 blocks. So this is not nearly as many, but this is just a quick example for you. So let's say that it's a 2AC, and here we have the following argument. So how do we make a 2AC? Well, I'm going to go to speech. Okay, new speech document. And then which speech do we want? So we want 2AC. Also, let's say that we're debating a team. So let's say that I'm debating Westminster. 2AC versus Westminster, and then their team code is AB. All right, so I hit OK, and it opens this nice little speech doc. Okay, so it's a blank speech document, and I'm all ready to go. So when would I be making this 2AC speech doc? Well, you should be making it before the 1NC happens, right before the 1NC. So let's say the 1NC is happening, and the 1NC is going blah, 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 reading their stuff, and the first argument they make is T ocean development. So I'm like, oh, I've got a block to T ocean development. Awesome. So I click on that. I click on the header, and then I click the tilde key. Okay, so the tilde is this key. It makes this sign, okay? And it's usually in the upper left-hand corner. So I'm gonna, hang on, let me make sure that this isn't done. Okay, so I'm gonna click the tilde key on this, and look what happens. This entire block, see everything that's in here, gets sent to my 2AC doc. Cool, super cool. So like, okay, so awesome. That got sent over to the 2AC. So let's say their next argument is the environment DA, or is the fisheries industry DA. So I'm going to click that 2AC. I'm going to hit the tilde button, and look what happened. Awesome. It got sent to this file. Cool. Awesome. So let's say they go 3 off, and the last argument is the NGO counterplan. So I click on the NGO counterplan. I've got the header highlighted, and I'm going to hit the tilde key. All right. Cool. So now I have 2ACs versus all of their off case. So now let's say that they're like, blah, 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 they finally get done with their off case and we're ready to go on case. And I need to get some answers to case arguments. So I make a little header here. How did I do that? Using my hotkeys. Well, up here are the hotkeys for all of the different things. So the one for a hat is F5. So I just hit F5 and it made me that nice little header. So now I'm going to be like, okay, well, where are my case extensions to answer these case arguments? So like, let's say they made the argument that states sitting on, let's see that they make this argument that offshore conditions block solvency. So I'm like, oh gosh, I've got to answer this. So what do? I hit the little subheader, I hit the tilde key, and then look, it's there under my case flows. So, okay, so now I've got all the cards that I need for my 2AC. The 1NC is done, the cross-X is done, I'm ready to give my 2AC, and I'm looking at this order, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not right. I don't answer a disad before a counterplan. No, I answer counterplans before DAs. Remember when we talked about roadmaps? So what I'm going to do is click on this header, and then I'm just going to drag it right here above DAs. Then it's in the right order. And wait a minute, I don't answer my case at the bottom of the 2AC. No, I answer my case at the top. So I've got to pull case up here, and everything's already in the correct order. So what do you do when it's time for you to give your 2AC? Well, all you do is hit USB. And I don't have a USB in my computer right now, but it'll save it to the USB port, and then you'll just flash it right over to the other team. So that's how you make a 2AC. Okay. All right, so how do you make a good 2AC block? Well, you should think about the 2AR that you want to give as early as a 2AC. So you should reflect on how various 2AC arguments will work together to make a cohesive story that you can tell in the 2AR. So make sure that your 2AC arguments come together to actually form a cohesive 2AR strategy. Next, you should have a diversity of argument. Don't just read 10 no-link cards. If you have a bunch of different arguments, it'll be really hard for the neg to answer them all without dropping any. So for example, for your disad block, don't have just like 6 cards that say no link. You should have a no link, a no impact, a couple of reasons why there's no impact, a couple of different reasons why there's no uniqueness, and you should also have a link turn, right? Also, so next, how do you give a 2AC? Time management is everything. It doesn't matter if you killed the disad, if you just dropped a counterplan in the 2AC, you're gonna lose. So have a good idea of how long it takes you to read your 2AC blocks, and then make adjustments throughout the speech to make sure you sufficiently answer everything. So if you notice that, let's say they go 6 off, so they read 6 off-case arguments, well, you may not be able to read every single card in every one of your blocks. So you have to remember that you just have to read the most important cards and then move on to the next argument. Now this takes a lot of practice. So one strategy that I used to do with my 2A is practice having a teammate, so it would be me, send my 2A random 1NCs, and then my 2A would time how long it takes himself to make a 2AC to it, and then he'd also time himself to see whether he could finish the 2AC in 8 minutes. So the next thing you should do is put the most important stuff on top. So you should heavy load your best arguments first in the speech. So not necessarily like if my top 5 arguments are like no uniques on the disad, the counterpoint doesn't solve, and also the permutation on the critique. I'm not saying that you should make those 3 arguments right away in your speech. What I'm saying is when you get to the disad, make the best arguments on the disad first. When you get to the counterplan, make your best arguments on the counterplan first. When you get to the critique, make your best arguments on the critique first. And be aware of what negative arguments pose the biggest threat. If you're debating a team that's notorious for going for topicality, maybe spend a little bit more time talking about topicality in the 2AC. So the order of the 2AC. So do you remember what a roadmap is? Well, it's when you tell the judge the order of the arguments that you're going to address. You just need to give the order of the off-case arguments and case advantages, not each individual argument. So you just need to give, essentially, the judge the order of the pieces of paper that you're going to be going in. Because you will be flowing on paper. You will not be flowing on your computer. This is liable to change depending on the round, the order that I'm going to tell you. But this is like a good idea, though. So the team, the judge, and how much of a threat each argument poses will also help you determine in what order you should go. So first is topicality. Some people say you should do case and then topicality, but I think it's best to start this way just so you don't drop topicality. Second, you should go to your case. Third, you should do counterplans. Fourth, you should answer critiques. If you're debating a team that goes for the K a lot, you should put this argument above counterplans. And then finally, you should put DAs at the bottom. Why do we put DAs at the bottom? Because case can always outweigh, whereas counterplans and Ks can suck up the offense that is the F. Next, how to roadmap like a pro. So before your speech, you should flash with a USB drive or email the speech doc to the other team. So give the other team your speech doc via a USB drive or via email. Second, you should bring your flows up to the standard podium. It's really embarrassing when you get up to give your speech and then you just don't have your flows. Third, when everyone is ready, tell the judge and the other team the order is going to be, and then say the order in which you'll address each case flow and off-case flow. You may need to repeat it a couple times, but that's totally okay. And then the fourth step to the roadmap is to give your kick-butt speech. So, the next affirmative speech is the 1AR. So the 1AR is the Scrappy Test-Taker. So have you ever met that person who always seems to get an A on tests, even though they've never studied a wink in their lives? Yeah, those people are really annoying. That's the 1AR. How do they do it, you might ask? It's because they figured out the test and the teacher to the point where they can predict what the answer is going to be and pick the right answer. Even if they don't always, 100% of the time, know the right answer right away, they can still put together their knowledge to get an A when you're left scratching your head. So what does this mean? So the 1AR is kind of a funny speech because you have 5 minutes to answer 13 minutes of neg arguments from the block. So you don't have enough time to make every single argument that you want to. So you have to be smart and you have to figure out what the best arguments are, what your AF's best arguments are, and put together a strategy, or at least have the pieces in place for a cohesive strategy for the 2AR. So you need to be good at predicting the 2NR, but you also need to be good at predicting the 2AR. Alright, so the 1AR is, as Brett Bricker says, the 2AC the 2A should have given. This speech is really hard. As I said, you have 5 minutes to answer 13 minutes of neg speeches in the block. But you can do it. The 1AR is my favorite speech in the whole entire debate, closely followed by the 2NC. So you have 2 main goals. First is to extend and explain the most important arguments for the 2AR. And if you do this well, your 2A will love you bunches. I totally said there was 2 main goals, but there's just one. Set up the 2AR. Alright, I know what you're thinking. I don't think I can answer 13 minutes of neg speeches in 5 minutes. Well, the cool thing is, you don't have to answer every neg argument. You just have to extend enough for your 2A to give a winning 2AR. So this is what you have to answer in the 1AR. First, you have to answer, to some extent, all neg positions that they've extended. You can't just drop a disad or a counterplan. And you also have to answer the key arguments in the debate. I know this sounds vague, but it varies from debate to debate. So one of the skills the 1As develop is being able to predict what these key arguments are and how best to answer them. So here's how you give a winning 1AR. First, you should collaborate with your 2A about how they envision the 2AR looking, and you should craft a 1AR together with your 2A to extend those arguments in the 1AR. No matter what you think, unless you're debating with your twin, you don't know what the 2AR is thinking about going for in the 2AR. So you should talk to them and make sure that you have everything, or that you have everything that they need in the 1AR. Next, don't extend everything in the 2AC. This is really hard, and a lot of novices will do this anyway, but bears reminding. Figure out what the key arguments are that they're going to be going for in the 2AR, and explain them well in the 1AR. Just pick the key arguments for the 2AR. If you have to read a card or two on one of these key points, you should do it, but you should not do it at the expense of missing answering key neg arguments that you've identified. Also, reading cards in the 1AR is a strategy that can wait until you're a varsity debater to implement. That's okay, but I just wanted you to be aware that some people do read cards in the 1AR, but you have to be really good at time management and predicting neg args to invest the time to do that. Next, don't be verbose. Because you have so little time, you have to be fast and concise. Explain the key points and move on. You don't have time to tell a story like they do in the 2AR. I will say that this varies a little bit if you are reading a KF or if you're reading some kind of performance AF, but we'll just have a separate video about how these speeches would be modified if you're reading that type of AF. So, 1AR blocks. A great strategy to give a really good 1AR is to make 1AR blocks for common neg block strategies. For example, if the 2A goes for a link turn on the politics DA in the 2AR a lot, then you should write up an explanation of the link turn in the 1AR that cites specific 2AC evidence. So why would you do this? Two things. First, it saves time when preparing for the 1AR. The explanation is right there, and you don't have to prep what you're going to say. You don't have to think about it. You can just grab it into your 1AR speech doc. And second, you're more efficient and you can speak faster since it's already written out because you're already reading something. You're not just coming up with something off the top of your head. So let's go on a field trip to the 1AR blocks. Okay, so we're going to go back to this AF file, and here we go, 1AR blocks. So I have 1AR blocks to T, disadvantages, and also counterplans. So here we go. I'm going to go to my 1AR extensions for the environment DA. So you'll say that these look very different from 2AC blocks. They're not just collections of cards. In fact, they're mostly collections of explanations of cards. What is going on? That were made in the 2AC. So here we go. And what else did I do that's different? So in the 2AC, if you look at the 2AC to the environment DA, let's pull that up. 2AC blocks, DAs, environment DA. You'll see that they're just cards, right? And also, it's just one big block. 2AC environment DA. Now, if you go to the 1AR, you'll see that I have this split up a little bit. Oops, here we go. Here's the uniqueness extension and the link turn extension. So these are two different parts and an impact extension, right? So the 1AR blocks are different than 2AC blocks in that they're compartmentalized into individual arguments. So hypothetically, if you were just going for no uniqueness, you would spend more time just talking about no uniqueness versus if you were extending the link turn, you would just extend the link turn, right? So sometimes you won't be going for both, so it's good to have them more compartmentalized so you can pick and choose the key arguments that you want to be going for, okay? So here's another thing. So extend the troll evidence. MITA is environmentally friendly and conforms to strict safety standards. It's safer than all their practices. And second, extend that oceans are dying now. New sustainable efforts are key. So this is how you write up an extension. So first, write kind of a tagline. So oceans are dying now, but sustainable efforts are key. This is what you want the judge to flow. Next, you want to extend the card with the author name. So that's the ipso evidence, and then a reason why you should prefer that evidence, because of international consensus. And finally, you should write down some warrants about why the card supports the statement that you made at the beginning. So overfishing, destructive practices, and bad management means the ocean will inevitably fail. You'll notice that I'm really terrible at spelling. I don't know, I've got a big vocabulary, but I don't know why I'm so bad at spelling. Anyway, so here's another example with link turn, right? Extend the link turn. So that's the big argument. That's what you want them to flow. We solve overfishing by restoring fish populations. That's the 1AC Smith evidence. We control uniqueness on this question. So hang on. Flashback to DAs. What are the two parts of a link turn? No uniqueness, and the link goes the other way, right? So here's the uniqueness. Overfishing is the root cause of ocean decline. It's increasing now because of stress on vulnerable species and marine ecosystems. That's Rader. Refer him. He's from the EDF, which is the Environmental Defense Fund, and our evidence post dates. And here's another card. Aquaculture management is improving. MITA solves. Diana et al. 13. And then, so here's another card in the 1AR. If you're really going to go for the link turn, then you have another piece of evidence that you can extend, right? So that's what 1AR blocks look like. So let's go back to the PowerPoint and go on. So here's the final speech in the AF debate, and that's the 2AR. So the 2AR is the storyteller. The 2AR is the kid who is actually not very interesting, but everyone is actually fascinated with that person because they have such good stories. This kid can explain how they walked to school uphill both ways and how it was totally awesome, and everyone is just sitting there enthralled. And don't even try to one-up this kid. The 2AR can always explain how they are cooler than you, 2NR. Okay, so as a 2N, it always kills me when the 2AR stands up and just like is so persuasive, and I'm just like, no, they're totally wrong. We're neg and we totally win. But that's a skill of the 2AR, is to be the most persuasive person in the round. So the 2AR is all about persuasively explaining how the app is the most awesome thing ever, colloquially. So there are three main goals. First, you need to explain how the app solves and how the app has the biggest impact in the round. So that's doing impact calc. Second, you should explain how the app solves all of the other impacts in the round. And then third, you should explain why the other arguments that the 2NR went for are small. So you should explain your defensive and offensive arguments on negative off case. Alright, so the order of the 2ARs should be as follows. First is case. So you should go to each advantage and explain why you're winning it and answer every negative response in order. And second, you should go to the off case. And you should explain why A, the app solves the off case, so this adds counterpoints critiques, and B, it's not all that important anyway, so that's extending your defensive arguments, or if you're going for an offensive reason, then you should extend that there. So what does this mean? This means that you have to have a clear strategy in the 2AR. This is why setting up the 2AR and the 1AR is so important, because you need to craft a persuasive story about how awesome the app is. So you need to connect kind of the big ideas of how the app solves and how that relates to the disad and whether the disad has an impact, and if so, why it doesn't, etc., etc. Right? So what is more persuasive? So here's way one with the trade-off DA. The budget isn't set in stone now, and there isn't an impact to asteroids, and the plan doesn't spend that much money anyway and doesn't trade off. So that's the first thing. The second way is this. The app solves the DA. Because the budget isn't set in stone now, funding for the plan actually allows for an increased NASA funding because of the increased overall R&D budget. This allows for increased asteroid research, which means that the app actually solves the neg impact of asteroid deflection. If you said number two, you're right. Why? Because it tells a story. It's not just a disjointed set of facts. It actually explains kind of the narrative arc of the disadvantage, or in this case, why the app solves and turns it. So in the 2AR, you have to synthesize all parts of the debate and then join them together to show the judge a viewpoint about how they should evaluate the debate. So you should explain how you won the debate based on winning certain arguments. So, for example, if we win X and Y, we win the link turn, which means the DA is now an app advantage and flows F. So you have to connect all the points. If we win these arguments, then that means this, which that means we win because, and then explain why. Okay? So coming up next is part 3. So this is what you should be doing when you're not speaking. So yeah, it's all fine and dandy to be doing stuff when you are speaking, but think about the 75% of the time in the debate when you're not. What should you be doing? So I'm going to describe that there. So please join us for that video, and I hope to see you then. Bye.